Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships. On this Saturday edition video, where we are going to be doing an upgrade and commander build on the Thunderer, the Tier 10 premium British battleship. And so we're going to be looking at just a quick overview of the ship. We'll look at the modules, the upgrades, consumables, and then most of all the commander. So the mighty jingles are run on my Thunderer. So let's just do an overview and talk about what type of battleship are we talking about here when we are looking at the Thunderer. Thunderer is, in my opinion, a mid to long range battleship. Mostly because when I say mid to long range, one of those reasons is the guns. The guns are quite accurate, these 457 millimeter guns. But she is a rather squishy battleship. She doesn't have a ton of health hit points, health pool at 82,900 at tier 10. And her armor is not the best either. So you have this 32 millimeter forend, afternoon plating, and then we get this casemate armor at 32 millimeter, and then we come down as 406 millimeter. Superstructure is kind of large, so it's easy to HE farm that. And then if we start stripping away the ship, you can see that the Citadel armor, it comes up just above. So it's like a T. So if you show broadside or you're not angled well enough, it's easy for you to eat Citadels. Especially with Thunder, one of the weaknesses you have, because she has this flat bottom. Is that every now and then you might notice that if you're kiting away from battleship or you're showing this flat broadside of the back, that a shell can come through an arm and hit into your Citadel. There's just not enough between it and the Citadel to prevent that from happening, but usually talking about a larger caliber there. So mid to long range is how I have found it's best to play with Thunder. Also because of career concealment, you can get it all the way down to 12.3. So that helps for when you need to go dark and disengage if things heat up. So, modules. So as a premium battleship, you get all the modules that you would. The main battery, these 457 millimeter guns, 45 Mark II, have a reload time of 22.9, and with the commander build I have 180 degree turn time of 34.5 seconds, and you can see that it has significant HE shell damage, but also the AP shell damage. Yesterday's video I talked a little bit more, focusing on the armor piercing, and those shells have a 63% chance of starting a fire with those HE shells. The hull itself, that 82,900 hit points. The gun range, 21.5 main battery firing range. It used to be, I think, it was 23 or a little over, but then Wargaming decided, oh, we need to nerf the Thunder, it's too OP. So what did they do? They nerfed the range, which was exactly what was wrong with the ship. Wink, wink. Then the propulsion, you get a maximum speed of 29.5 knots without the Sierra mic flag. Upgrade wise, we have 6 slots for tier 10. The first slot, I have chosen to take the main armaments modification 1 upgrade. What this does is it increases survivability and accelerates repairs of the main battery. Also torpedo tubes, but you don't get that on Thunder. So the risk of your main battery becoming incapacitated is negative 20%, and your main battery survivability goes up by plus 50%, and your main battery repair time, if the main battery does get knocked out, is reduced by negative 20%. So meaning the guns will repair faster if you're not able to use your damage control party. You also have auxiliary armaments in magazine modification. Auxiliary armaments modification 1. If you're taking this, it's really you're taking it for AA. I mean, the secondaries are okay on the Thunder, but it's not a secondary brawling battleship. It's just got this range of 6.7 seconds. So I don't really suggest investing in that. Neither the magazine modification, which reduces the risk of your ship's magazine detonating, because you get combat signals. You get the Juliet Charlie combat signal right here. Completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazine detonating. So if you're playing something like ranked random battles, clan battles, ideally you should be running that combat signal. For slot 2, we have damage control system modification 1. What this does is it reduces the risk of fire and flooding. Risk of catching fire, -5%. Risk of flooding, -3%. And then engineering protection. I take this more on destroyers and maybe some cruisers. Anything that you can reduce the HE meta at tier 10 in particular, and now that we got more of these super ships coming into the game, we'll soon have, yikes, anything you can do to help reduce the fire chances is helpful. You have also the defensive AA fire modification. What this does is increases the consumable action time by plus 20% and consumable reload time. We'll probably circle back to that consumable here in a minute, but I don't want to touch on consumables quite yet, as that pairs with the consumable, that upgrade I just talking about. You have 4 options for slot 3. You have the main battery modification 2. This would improve your main battery traverse speed by plus 15%. You have secondary battery modification. Again, you're not a secondary brawling battleship, so I don't recommend taking this. AA guns modification. Priority AA sector preparation time is reduced by -20%. And then aiming systems modification 1, which is what I have gone for. The main reason I like this is because of that maximum main battery shell dispersion, -7%. So that means you're getting tighter shell groupings on enemy targets when you're firing at them. And I really like that. And you do get a slight buff to your secondaries on the firing range and the secondary battery shell dispersion. If, let's say, a destroyer is trying to get up close on you and you finish them off with your secondaries. But the main reason why I like this is because of the maximum main battery shell dispersion being reduced. I have not found the 180-degree turn time, the traverse speed on the Thunder's guns to drive me crazy. It's just preparing when you're doing turns. If you know I'm going to turn, I'm dark, then I start turning the guns in advance and that kind of thing. So for me, I much prefer having great accuracy. Thunder already has great accuracy, and when you add a little extra to make the accuracy even better, you get really good results, in my opinion. Slot 4, you get the damage control system modification 2, which is what I have mounted. It accelerates the fire extinguishing and recovery from flooding by -15%. So you're not burning as longer, you're not flooding as longer. For example, if your damage control party is on cooldown, or if it's just one fire, I mean, you're most likely just going to let it burn, because really you don't want to use the damage control party till, let's say, you get 2 or 3 fires on you, or you're flooding. You have propulsion modification. Again, I prefer to run this more on cruisers, destroyers, not so much Thunderer. You also get steering gears modification 1. The rudder shift time is reduced by -20%. Your rudder shift time is already quite good for 10.4 seconds. There's battleships at tier 8 that have worse rudder shift time than this. So to me, the rudder shift time is actually pretty good. So I don't really feel the need to take this because I'm trying to improve my survivability because you don't have the greatest armor, and it's you can take a lot of HE shell damage just on the superstructure itself. You have airstrike modification 1, airstrike armament reload time, -20%, aircraft HP, depth charge damage. So really this is about the depth charge airstrike. As I record this, we haven't entered into update 11.0 yet, but Wargaming is going to be taking subs out for 2 patches, so there's really no point in having this mounted right now. Even if there's submarines around, sometimes you might get matches without subs. So, I mean, if there's submarines around, there are always going to be torpedoes, right? That's their main thing. So that's why I just think you get the most bang for your buck with that upgrade. For slot 5, I have chosen the concealment system modification 1. It reduces the detectability range of the ship and aircraft carrier squadrons. So you can see squadron detectability range, -10%, ship's detectability range, -10%, dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship, +5%. So also it kind of worsens the dispersion by enemies firing on your ship. So that's a little nice buff there. You can see when we're looking at concealment, I have Consumer Expert already on the Mighty Jingles for the battleship skills. So you can see 12.3, detectability range by depth, 0 to 10.1, by air, 10.1, and then your assured detectability range of 2.0. To me, I mean, it doesn't make sense to take torpedo lookout system. Maybe if you had a more hydro-oriented battleship, this would have a little bit more. Maybe I would suggest it, but not in this case, because with the Thunder, with your survivability being lower, the importance of being able to disengage from battle when you need to, especially at tier 10, when you're going up against some ships that have over 100,000 HP is important, and you get those little, Smolensk at tier 10, and other cruisers that can sling a lot of HE at you and set you on fire. It's nice when, I'm a little too deep, and then going dark and running away until you can re-engage into the battle. Then you also have ship consumables modification 1. This increases the action time. No, this is more of a cruiser skill when you have a lot of consumables going on. For example, something like Wooster, because Wooster, tier 10 American light cruiser, has a ton of consumables. So then maybe I lean more that way, but not for Thunder. For slot 6, I have taken the main battery modification 3 upgrade. It reduces the reload time of the main battery guns to -12%, but it comes at a cost where your main battery traverse speed is decreased. Or I should say increase. It takes a little longer when you mount this skill. So you can see our reload time right now is 22.9 seconds, and you pair that with something like Adrenaline Rush, then you start seeing 21 and maybe 20 something seconds, also depending on how much health you have. So maximizing the DPM for these 8 457mm guns, in my opinion, is the best route to go. But you do also get the gunfire control system modification 2. This extends your main battery firing range by plus 16%. I just don't see the need for this skill. Again, I would prefer the DPM. I mean, you already have decent range for 21.5 at tier 10. So, yeah. Auxiliary armor modification 2 improves the efficiency of the secondary battery in AA mounts. I'm not so sure how much I would consider. Let's see, what is the rating for the AA defense? It's 81. So there are things you can do on the upgrades if you're wanting to make more of an AA build out of Thunder. I haven't tested it, but I don't know if I would recommend it, because to me, she has somewhat good AA on the better side, especially when you pair it with the defensive AA fire consumable. But again, when people talk about the Thunder, they're talking about her main battery guns. They're talking about the insane chances of setting a fire. Usually every salvo you're setting a fire almost, and that armor piercing is sick. So that's really, to me, what Thunder is more known for. So I want to invest in building that. Consumable-wise, you get the standard damage control party. Consumable action time, 15 seconds. Reload time, that's standard, 80 seconds, like you'll find on most battleships. You also have consumables. You get the repair party. You get 4 of them, how we have mounted right now. Thunder does have good healing HP per second in comparison to some other tier 10 battleships. It's not the levels of Conqueror, the tier 10 tech tree British battleship. But it's really good, and you can even improve that more with a combat signal like India Delta. When we come back over, we look at this, and now it's almost 600 HP per second. So we always want to take India Delta with this. And the reload time is 60 seconds. So that's nice, because I think in other instances it can be a bit longer, like the 80 seconds is what I want to say off the top of my mind right now. Defensive AA fire, this increases the intensity of your AA fire. So continuous damage plus 50%, damage from shell explosions plus 300%. So this is quite nice. Let's see, you've got a carrier that is harassing you. Here you can see the continuous damage, you're damaged by shell explosions. So when you're running this, you will hurt the CV, but probably not enough to hurt the CV to prevent him from getting his one drop off. That's just not much of a thing in World of Warships anymore at this point in time. Unless maybe it's a tier 8 carrier versus a tier 10 carrier, then maybe. So let's go ahead and talk about the commander skills. So here you can see that I have basically a 14-point build, and I'll show you where I'm building up to. So for the first point skill, 1 point commander, I have taken gun feeder. Time taken to switch between shell types, reduced by -50%. So because the armor piercing is really good, ideally you should be kind of a mix of HE and AP in my opinion. I mean, you can play games with only high explosive, but you might get some good opportunities to use the armor piercing on broadside cruisers and battleships. So, and you will hurt them. You saw that in yesterday's video when we chunked the Montana twice. So there's an example for you. 3 point commander, I would say main battery traverse speed plus 20%, because that's what gets us down to where we are at now at that 34.5 second, 180 degree turn time. Then I would say adrenaline rush. Again, once you start taking damage on your ship, you're losing your hit points. It will start buffing your reload time on your main battery to get you down to 22, 21, maybe 20 something seconds. So you become a little more dangerous, and you get a little buff on your AA damage if your AA hasn't taken any significant damage. Now, for a 10 point commander, you could go for fire prevention first or concealment expert first. I think, in my opinion, I ended up going in with concealment expert first because I could get it down to 12.3. And you use some camos, some economic signals. Not too long, you're hitting 14 points, or maybe you're using some of your elite commander XP, just because the concealment works really well on the Thunderer. And then immediately went for fire prevention expert. So what this does is it further reduces your risk of catching fire by -10%, but also reduces the maximum number of fires. So on your battleship, you can get 4 fires set on the ship without fire prevention expert. 1 on the bow, 1 on the stern, and 2 on the superstructure. Fire prevention, what it does is instead of getting 2 fires on your superstructure, you only get 1. So then you're taking less damage because a lot of players who have played long enough at the higher tiers, and maybe even at lower tiers, they're going to be focusing your superstructure, right? So that's where most HE shell damage hits. So when you can reduce the damage you're going to take on your superstructure just to 1 fire versus 2 fires, and your health pool isn't being drained as fast, that, in my opinion, is a really good day. So, 14 point commander. After this, where do I intend on going? Next, I would probably recommend the emergency repair expert as your 18 point commander. What this does is the action time of the damage control party is extended by plus 10%. You get unlimited number of damage control parties, so that doesn't apply to Thunder. Repair party consumable action time plus 10%, so it means it can be able to heal back even more damage. And instead of having 4 repair parties, I'm going to get 4 repair party consumables. So that, in my opinion, is really nice. And that's where I want to invest in building here on the Thunder as an 18 point build. And then for a 21 point commander, I'm looking at basics of survivability. Your module restoration time is reduced by -15%. Fire extinguishing time, -15%, and flooding recovering time, -15%. So, because again, I will say it, Thunder is not the tankiest at battleships by any means. She's usually known to be a little bit more on the squishy side. Reminds me a little bit of Bourgogne, but not quite the same. So improving the survivability and reducing how much damage you're going to take overall extends your lifetime in the battle, and you're able to make more of an impact. So this is what I am intending to take on the Thunderer. Other build options we could possibly do. Let's look, and we'll talk about this guy later. Now, it could be that you are a player who likes priority target. Priority target, it's basically this detection indicator. It shows you the number of opponents on the enemy team that are currently aiming at your ship with their main battery gun. So if you saw all of a sudden you start seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that usually means you're probably overextended, or you're the only member on your team that's lit. So you should probably consider going dark. And gives you some information of, I shouldn't make that game return of, maybe you're turning out and we'll be showing broadside to the team. So it's a bit of an awareness skill. So if I really wanted to take priority target, I would probably just forsake and give up on not taking basics to survivability. And then this gives us 1 point left. You could be a little bit trollish. So let's see, artillery. You could be a little trollish. I'm not gonna lie. You could bump that 63% up to a 64%. And I think, let's look at here. Yeah, 65%. So yeah, these two combat signals, chances of fire caused by shell of a caliber more than 160 millimeter or an HE bomb, plus 1%. Same thing here. And then we go into the commander, and we say something like this. Now you have a 66% chance of starting a fire versus that 63%. So that is quite deadly, in my opinion. So that's something that you could be doing there if you really want the priority target. It does kind of sound fun to take just to really buff your chances of starting a fire. Other skills, I mean, if, for example, let's say you're in priority target and that doesn't thrill you as much because your chances of starting a fire are already pretty high to begin with, you could take preventive maintenance. What this does is it reduces the risk of the main turrets, steering gears, and your engine from becoming incapacitated. So you're trying to help your ship in a different way. So I feel, for me, this is that you could do that. Maybe, I mean, if you wanted to buff your AA a little bit more, you could take the AA Defense and ASW Expert. What this does is that not only does it buff your AA damage, continuous AA damage and damage from AA shell explosions, but also your depth charge damage. So when you drop your airstrike depth charge attack on a submarine, you're going to be doing more damage to them now. So you get a bit of a little buff there, and then maybe it's something like this or this. But the standard you will find most players will be taking is this type of tank build. This is something that you'll regularly see suggested on a lot more of your standard battleship. And what I mean by standard, usually that means they're not a brawler. You're just improving the survivability, the health pool, reducing what damage you're going to take. And so you're going to see a lot of players taking something like this. So this is what I would recommend first and foremost on Thunder. Then if you really want priority target, you can go something like that. Or that. Or if you want a little more AA damage, more damage by your airstrike depth charge, then you could go something like this. Or this. So why not some of the other skills, Flimsy? Okay, so we talked about that guy. Consumable Specialist, you're only getting the enhancement for the defensive AA. So, this skill can buff 5 things, but you're only getting 1. So I don't see the need for that. The reload time of damage control party. That is possibly something if you were doing something like this. What it does is it reduces the reload time of the damage control party and your repair party consumable. So you could do this as an option. Sometimes I know players, maybe they don't like to take the gun feeder. So what they do is say don't take gun feeder, but instead they take emergency repair specialist, and they stack that on top of the basics of survivability. That could also be an option. It's not a bad skill, but it's 1 point skill where you get a little bit of a bonus there. It's nothing to go home and brag about. Incoming fire alerts. You could do this too. You could drop a gun feeder and pick up this in place of that. So it'd be something like that, and then basic survivability. What it does is it lets a warning about a salvable fire at your ship from a distance of more than 4.5 kilometers. So maybe that means you want to slow down your speed, you want to slow down, turn in, pull some sort of maneuver to reduce what damage you might take from this incoming salvo. You have IFHE. You're not. Your HE already smashes, and then why in the world would you want to reduce your fire starting chance and cut it in half on Thunderer? You're taking away 31.5%. Why would you want to do that? Don't take this skill. Then you get Brisk. This is something that works on the Repulse because you get an engine boost. It's the tier 6 British battleship. But on Thunder, you don't get an engine boost. So I don't really see the need for taking that because you have other better 2-point skills to take. Vigilance extends the torpedo acquisition range even while the hydroacoustic search consumable is active. I see this more for brawling battleships. This is something that I kind of shared or talked about on the FDG, the Frederick the Grosse, or even the Grosse Kurfürst. You could take this, but again, on Thunder, no. Talked about these two skills. This skill is complete garbage to super heavy AP shells. Your main battery AP shell damage is plus 7.5%. Fire extinguishing time and flood recovery time plus 25%. So it's totally not worth it. You're slinging usually HE most of the time in Thunder anyhow. But this is a skill I've never have and never will unless Wargaming changes more of the parameters. But it's just, to me, it's just a bad skill because you're going to take more damage just to take this to get that 7.5% additional AP shell damage. You're not a brawling battleship. I think even if you were to take this, your artillery secondaries, we get up to a range of 9.2. But again, you're investing in the main battery, not the secondary. So I don't recommend the secondary build. We talked about basic survivability. You also get improved repair party readiness. It's a defensive skill. It's a can be activated skill. Sometimes I'm a little bit more cautious with can be activated skills. So what it does is it improves the efficiency of consumables each time your ship receives potential damage equal to 100% of the ship's base hit points. Repair party consumable reload time, negative 0.8%. I haven't done the math on this and what this looks like on Thunder. But again, it's a can be activated skill. It's kind of reminds you of Adrenaline Rush, but a little bit differently. Because it's the potential damage, not actual damage you've taken in this case. So, I mean, this is just so much better to take over that skill. Oh yeah, we do have the other AA skill, Focus Fire Training. What this does is that the priority sector is activated by pressing the key while facing in the direction of attacking hostile aircraft. Airstrike armament reload time, negative 10%, priority sector reinforcement, plus 25%, number of shell explosions in AA salvos, plus 1. So let's look at the A defense. So you're making more numbers go up. For me, when I'm thinking of more of like an anti-air ship, I usually think more of the cruisers, like the Golden Liu, Golden Lion, Wooster, Minotaur. That's where I'm thinking of more investing on that because your concealment's even better. I don't foresee it so much on the battleships. But if you run an AA build on your Thunder, let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. Furious can be activated, improves your ship's characteristics for each active fire on board your ship. Main battery reload time, negative 5%. Dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship, plus 5%. This is another can be activated skill. There's been a bit of a meme with this skill, like for example on Thunder, where you forsake Fire Prevention Expert, you don't take it because you want more fires, and then you just print a new ship with your repair party with Conqueror. I've seen it done on YouTube, but not on Thunder, because Conqueror can print a new ship much better than I feel like the Thunder can, or it just does factually. So this is a bit of a meme troll build, and I don't buy it for Thunder. Close quarters combat. This we're talking about being a brawling battleship here. Increases the reload speed of the main battery after an enemy has been spotted within a firing range of your ship's secondary battery, negative 10%. This is something if you're thinking really aggressive on a secondary brawling battleship, and Massachusetts, Georgia, Palmer, maybe those type of ships is where more this skill comes into play. But Thunder, it's not a brawling battleship, so we stay at that mid to long range. So I don't see the need for that skill. And then that brings us to all the other skills we have discussed. So that will bring us to a close, and just right about on the 30-minute mark. So apparently I have to pick up my daily stuff now. So if you like this video on the Thunder and the upgrade and commander build, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it as we continue to grow the community here with you. So until next time, take care.